Everyone, it's Emily Fox. Today's video is going to be something a little bit different. I paid a book expert to give me 3 personalized book recommendations, and I thought I would vlog my experience. This video is in collaboration with the company Tailored Book Recommendations, TBR, and I wanted to show you how it goes for me, and then I will actually be reading the book to let you know my thoughts on all of them and to see if it was worth it or not. So we're going to look at what I gave for answers before you see the letter. That way you can actually see how they definitely went for what I wanted. So obviously you start by giving your name, Emily Fox, and then your email, you do Emily Fox. And then they ask for your favorite genre. So of course I mentioned science fiction and fantasy because usually it's about 50% of the reading that I do throughout the year. And it's usually like 25, less this year, which is why I'm looking forward to these recommendations. Number 4, is there anything you want to explore more in your reading life? So I mentioned that I've been reading a lot of popular fantasy and sci-fi, but the vast majority of them were written by white men, which is true. Like a lot of the really popular ones are, and I obviously don't read just that. I go out of my way all the time, but I just wanted to find more diverse ones because a lot of them haven't worked for me. And it is key on their website that they mention that they do offer more diverse and less known authors, which is a goal for me here. Question number 5, what are the last books you really loved? Okay, I've mentioned obviously my love of Octavia E. Butler because I'm trying desperately to read everything by her. So I mentioned the Lilith's Brood series and Kindred. I also mentioned that I loved The Sword of Kaijin last year. Was it just last year? Damn. And I mentioned that obviously I'm a big fan of Brandon Sanderson and Becky Chambers because they're pretty safe bet and gives them a good idea of what I like. You don't know yet, but I've struggled to say that question 50 times already. Number 6, how should your bibliologist balance books that fit your current style with picks that branch out? I said that I wanted mostly familiar, but an occasional stretch was okay because I feel like I gave a very general idea, so I didn't want to go too crazy, but feel free to go and spice it up if that's your goal. Number 7, are you looking for recommendations on a certain team? Which this is where I shine. I mentioned that I'm a big fan of First Contact with Aliens for sci-fi or Magic or Witches for fantasy because I haven't read pretty much any this year so far, so I wanted to see what they would offer that I've never heard of because I've been looking for more recommendation for these specific tropes. Number 8, is there anything else you want your book nerd? I'm going to be calling you book nerd. Anything else you want your book nerd to know before they pick your books? And to everyone's surprise, I said, please no romance. Did they listen? Did they listen? We'll see. So then it brings you to your 2 options. You can either pay $16 to get 3 personalized recommendations as a letter, which is what I did, which Dimension takes about 2 weeks. I got mine in about a week. We're going to look at it in a second. And then the second option is that you can receive the hardcover books if you live in the US. So Erica looked at my questionnaire and gave me 3 book recommendations. So we're going to look at them one by one, and I'm going to check if my library has them first. And if they don't, I will be ordering the ebooks. So the first book is Breaking Day. I selected this book because you want to read more diverse sci-fi. A century has passed since the last human that lived on Earth escaped from after AI takeover. I've read a couple books similar with that trope of like remnant of humanity on a ship, and they're usually very good, so I'm hoping that this one will also work for me. I just checked and my library does have it, but the waiting list is like 20+ weeks, so we're not going to do that for this video. I will be ordering the ebook for this one. I'm excited. The second one, The Conductors. I've selected this fantasy because you enjoy magic and witches. Definitely do. A couple known as the Conductors have been using magic to help enslaved people gain their freedom. Now residing in Philadelphia, the free men can't rely on the police or anyone outside the community for help when something goes wrong. So Sherlock Holmes style murder mystery with magic. Okay, I don't read a ton of urban fantasy, but it's because I don't see them recommended that much, or maybe I'm just not looking for them that much. So that should be really interesting, and it might make me read more of them in the future. So this one, my library has the ebook available, so I just grabbed that, and I will be reading that one first. And then the last one, but not the least, we have Dead Silence. I selected this book as your stretch read because you enjoy sci-fi that has first contact with teams. This sci-fi horror follows a crew who receive a faint distress signal and decides to investigate. Okay. I don't read a ton of horror, but it's because it's been really hit and miss for me. I like the idea of the genre, I feel like, more than the books themselves. So hopefully this will change my mind because I don't feel like I've read that many with sci-fi. and I'm very, very hopeful. I love sci-fi once again, First Contact with Aliens, so that seems like it's still right up my alley. But I like the idea that they include one that is like a little stretch out of your comfort zone, but still not too far from me. Dead Silence was also not available at my library, so I ordered it. I will be actually using my Kindle this week. I missed it. I feel like when it's really sunny outside, it's really useful because there's no crazy reflection like on my phone. So I will be reading them hopefully all within this week, and I will let you know how it goes one by one, and we'll see by the end of it if it was worth the money or not. By the way, everything you want to know about a tailored book recommendation will be linked in the description box if you are interested. And by the way, the rest of the video is not sponsored. They have absolutely no idea what I will be saying in the reviews, so just wanted to make that clear. I finished the first book, so it's time to talk about it, The Conductors. I don't even know where to start with this one. The goal of this challenge was to discover books that I would have never found otherwise from diverse authors, and this is a mix of like historical fiction, fantasy, and like murder mystery. So I was not prepared for any of it. You're following Hetty and Rietta and her husband. They work together as conductors to help people get away from slavery. And some of the slaves, themselves included, have magical powers, which are the magical power is based on like star signs, but not everyone has some magic. And I think my only complaint is that the magic system is not well explained, which we'll come back to that. One day they find a body from someone that they know, and then they spend the whole week trying to figure out what's going on with other bodies in between. And I was exhausted for them. Hetty is basically suspecting anyone and everyone that she knows because it could be anyone, right? And it seems to be related to them somehow, so she's trying to piece things together. And as a character, she was actually really fun to follow because she was very calm, which I feel like I never follow characters in these situations that are that calm. And she was very likable, and you suspect everyone through her, basically, even her husband, like you just don't know what's going on. And I enjoyed it overall. But like I said, the magic system is not well explained. There's another kind of magic called sorcery, which could be learned by anyone. And I just wish it was more explained. I do tend to prefer strict magic systems, so it's probably playing into it, because she would like call different star signs and like I wasn't sure what they were going to do every time. Like they would just conveniently do whatever she needed, which I believe this might be a duology. At least book 2 exists and is already out. I looked into it. I'm terrible at continuing or even finishing series, so I don't know when that will happen, but I'm open to actually pick up book 2. In terms of rating, it's so fresh that it's kind of hard to give it a rating, but I would say maybe 3.5, maybe 3.75. Overall, I enjoyed it. I was very excited to, continue reading to try and also figure out what happened. There were quite a few characters. I do tend to be a little overwhelmed, but it wasn't too bad. I did enjoy the like historical fiction parts in there, which again, I don't read a ton of historical fiction. My main genres are definitely, usually fantasy, sci-fi, less this year, but I'm glad I read it. We'll see where it ranks in terms of all the other books for this challenge, but I enjoyed it, would recommend that one. So now I'm going to be picking up book 2, which is sci-fi, and I believe like humanity left on a ship, which I haven't read that many books with that trope, but we'll see how that goes. I believe there's artificial intelligence, so I'm excited. Update number 2, I finished Breaking Day, and this was one hell of an adventure. If you enjoy following a character living on a ship, kind of the remnant of humanity kind of trope, I would recommend this book. I think it's going to be the most popular of the 2, although I still prefer the other one. So a portion of humanity decides that they don't want to deal with artificial intelligence the same way as people on Earth, so they decide to escape and try to get to a different planet to go live. It takes obviously multiple generations, so you're following the generation that is about to arrive there. And you follow main character, a teenage boy, who starts having like visions / weird dreams, and he doesn't know if he's losing it. He's trying not to get caught because he's trying to become an engineer, and you can't be like an officer engineer if you're not well mentally, of course. But he's also from like a low family, so it's already very difficult for him to be where he is at. So you're following him and his cousin, who is definitely more on the criminal side, and she was very interesting to follow as a character. I feel like the characters in general could have been a little bit more well developed. I think I get less like attached to a lot of teenage male characters. I don't know if it's just me, but like I remember even Brandon Sanderson, I love him as an author, but I've read the Reckoner series, the first book, and then the Arithmetist by him, and both times I don't know if it's me that's the problem or if it's just that in these specific books, often it's common for the main teenage character to just not be well developed. I don't know. There was also love interest, but I think a lot of people are really going to enjoy everything that has to do with the technology space. I did enjoy some of the twists that happened. Obviously, I can't spoil everything here, but I felt like the ending was a little quick for me. I think that would be my main complaint. I think that the teenage thing is definitely on me. I feel like at times it felt a bit YA, and I feel like that would actually be a great recommendation for someone that usually reads YA books and wants to get into adult sci-fi. I think that this would be a great recommendation. I'll keep a note in my head to put it in a video recommendation later on. But yes, I do think, once again, that this is going to be the most popular of the two, but I personally prefer the other one. I'm still going to give it, I think, 3.5. Like, it was a solid read. I read it really quickly. I was more than happy to pick it up. Like, you know, whenever you're dreading to read the book, it's not a good sign. Not a problem with this one. But the ending was just really quick. I wish it was just a little bit more. You know what? I think I'm realizing the thing about the teenage boy thing is that I feel like it's very common for the trope of, like, obviously the teenager knows what's up and they're right, and adults are all being really dumb. Which I'm sure it exists with teenage girls too. I've just not seen it as much. I think that was the one thing that just, you know. So far, the Conductors is still in first place. This one is going to be second place, and we're going to be seeing what happens with number 3, which the book is called Dead Silence. And I believe that one is like horror sci-fi. I don't want to reread the portion that they sent me because I don't want to like know anything else, because horror. So I'm looking forward to it, but I want to go into it not knowing anything else just in case. I feel like that works better. It's also a trope that I really enjoy because I read 6 Weeks, which was kind of similar. Not quite, but kind of. And I think it's a great idea. That's terrifying in my head. So I'm looking forward to that one. We'll see where it will rank. So I just finished Dead Silence. Not gonna lie, I think this was the one that was making me the most nervous. Not because it's out of my comfort zone, but just because of my experience in general with horror books. I feel like I never loved the ending. Like, never. But my main goal with horror is to be creeped out. And I feel like just a handful of horror books have done that to me, which if you have any recommendations, let me know, because I just want to be creeped out and I want to like the ending. That's it. And this one, I was not prepared. Your following character, and in the beginning it's kind of hinted that she has some PTSD, something has happened when she was growing up, and it's kind of revealed throughout the story, so I'm not going to spoil anything. I feel like horror books, the least you know the better. So like the recommendation letter was mentioning, her and her team are at the end of their contract, and they hear a signal, a distress signal, further in space where there's basically no one. And they decide to go and check it out, of course. And they find this huge ship that was sent into space like 20 years ago that was supposed to be like a cruise ship that would tour the solar system, which basically just rich and famous people went. And after 6 months in space, it just disappeared and nobody was able to find it. So they find it and they decide to go inside to, first off, have claim, like grab something to prove that they found it so they can like Keeper's Finder basically can get rich from it, but they also want to kind of figure out what happened, right? So that's it for the summary, because, you know, anything else would be a spoiler, but I was so uncomfortable, like in a good way, of course. I feel like deep space and like water are the two things that really freak me out very easily. I think it's the lack of like oxygen, of course, but like they're just big, vast, empty or not space definitely do it for me. And yeah, I was super uncomfortable throughout the whole book. And I feel like the ending was good, which is obviously a plus. And I think that between the 3 books, this is going to be my favorite one. I think I'm going to give it a solid 4-star. Like it was good. I was really uncomfortable. I read it in 2 days, which was the fastest out of the 3 books that were picked. And if you are a horror fan, I would recommend it. Like I said, I haven't read that many, so I can't really compare it, which I feel like for that, this whole challenge has worked because it's mostly books that I had never heard of, authors I've never heard of, and things that are just slightly out of my comfort zone, but in a good way. So they all had their strength. The first book, Hattie, the main character, I feel like generally the main characters were the strength of the book. The second one, I feel like the world building was really interesting, and I do feel like a lot of people would enjoy it. And the last book, creep me out. Straight up creep me out. So now at this point, do I think that the service was worth it? Yes. If you're someone that you don't know what you're going to be reading next, you just like to get some new suggestions, you're trying to read more diversely or find authors you've never heard of, I do think the service was really interesting. I would definitely try something else again like that in the future. I do feel like I have a long list, and I feel like I do research new books quite often, but I like that none of these had ever crossed my radar. Big thank you to Tailored Book Recommendations for sponsoring this video, and a special mention to Erica who sent me my recommendations. Like I mentioned earlier, everything will be linked in the description box if you want to try it out yourself. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thumbs up, subscribe. I will be putting more videos on the screen that I recommend you check out, and I will see you in an upcoming video very soon. Bye. Kiss on a cheek or loving just like